Oh, yes. Okay.
I will get.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I need to take some medicine later after some time. So get ready.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, the Academic Lecture Forum, and to those of you who are online. Before we begin, I'd like to invite President Dr. Timothy Giannatti for a few words of welcome.
Thank you so much, Ramona. It is such a pleasure and privilege for us in this moment, this very special and sacred moment when the American Islamic College is renewing the original vision of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi, may God be merciful to him, who was so violently taken from the college just 3 years after the college began back in the 1980s. It's so exciting that we have an opportunity tonight to listen to one of his star students come and speak to us about Professor al-Faruqi and his life and his legacy and his thought and his even his dreams for this college. And so as Romana said, you know, my name is Dr. Timothy Giannatti, and I have the privilege and the honor of being the current steward of Professor al-Faruqi's renewed vision for the American Islamic College. So I'm the president and acting provost of AIC right now, and Romana Manzoor, our director of college programs, our accreditation liaison officer, our director of institutional research and effectiveness, is going to be our MC tonight. And I just want to say what a privilege and pleasure it is for us to have Dr. Imtiyaz with us, and I'm sure to have Professor al-Faruqi with us in spirit. And I'll give the microphone over to my colleague Romana. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, assalamu alaikum, everyone. To echo Dr. Timothy Giannatti, we are honored to have back with us Dr. Imtiyaz Yusuf as the distinguished speaker for tonight's talk on the renowned Ismail al-Faruqi, rahimahullah. May God be merciful and pleased with him. He's the founding president of American Islamic College. But first, we want to begin with a reminder and a reflection. Steeped in the Islamic values of creational stewardship and justice, all of us at American Islamic College believe that God has entrusted the lands and waters he created to humankind, who were created to serve God and the creation as stewards or caretakers. We acknowledge that our campus sits on land that was originally entrusted to the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, peoples whose sovereignty, culture, and very lives were violated by colonial policy. As an Islamic-oriented institution of higher education, we believe that we must stand for justice even when we ourselves may be implicated, as this is what God calls on us to do. So we remember those who suffer all kinds of injustices everywhere, now in Chicago and around the world, with anti-Black racism, religious persecution, and more. AIC welcomes students of all faiths and backgrounds as a safe space that honors a holistic and transformative form of education. AIC offers undergraduate and graduate degrees, and we coordinate a number of programs such as this one, so please stay tuned for more opportunities to get involved. And so now we turn our talk to Dr. Imtiyaz Yusuf. I'm so honored to introduce you again. Dr. Yusuf is currently a non-resident research fellow at the Center for Contemporary Islamic World at Shenandoah University. Formerly, he was associate professor and the coordinator for the Islamization of Knowledge program and also the Islam and Buddhism program at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization in Kuala Lumpur. Dr. Yusuf specializes in the study of religion with a focus on Muslim-Buddhist relations and dialogue and Islam in Thailand and Southeast Asia. You can read more about Dr. Yusuf's extensive list of publications and academic contributions on our website. Also, you can find Dr. Yusuf's book free for download. The link is also listed on our website. Without further ado, Dr. Imtiyaz Yusuf. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you to Dr. Giannatti for inviting me to talk about Professor Ismail al-Faruqi here. Uh, as I was walking down the hall, I heard him humming to me. uh, he lives with me. I always feel that he is around me because I was his last student assistant. And in my house, I was just telling you, I have only one photograph on the wall, and that is his portrait. And I always look at him, and he looks at me, and it's kind of talk, language talk. And he had many hundreds of students, and I'm only one of them who has continued writing about him or keeping his spirit alive. So I carry a lot of baggage and burden of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi's responsibilities on me. Many times when I write my articles, I feel him nudging me. Imtiyaz, do this, Imtiyaz, do that. In 1986, when I went for summer vacation to Ramadan, so for summer break, I go to Thailand, and just a few days before I departed from Philadelphia, in the morning I got a call from him, and normally he would call me and say, prepare this for the classroom or prepare that for the classroom, but on that day he said to me, oh, you're going to go to Thailand for holiday, so have a nice trip and come back and we will meet again. After 15 days, I got a call from Brother Ahmadullah Siddiqui, sitting here, that Professor Faruqi has been murdered. And it was a shock. And I said to myself, actually I used to go for holiday every year, but he never said goodbye to me. But that year, I don't know why, it was an indication to me, last salam, last goodbye to you. And that struck to me that, why did he call me that day and say, have a nice holiday and come back? And after that, he was murdered. So from that time, I have been carrying on his memory, and I've been carrying on and writing about him. I have, as I mentioned to you, about 50 articles of his unpublished works with me, and I will talk about that as I go further. So this just start off. When you see at the title here, Professor Ismail Raji al-Faruqi, without a hyphen or a dash. He did not put that dash between al and Faruqi. Everyone else does. Because he wrote a book on towards Islamic English. He saw that dash as a colonial intervention in Arabic language. So in his name, he never put, in earlier writings or publications, that dash is there, or hyphen, whatever you call it. So I have followed his tradition of not putting that thing there. And when I write whenever I write him, and I tell the editors of my articles that please remove that hyphen, because he did not believe in that. And it says, and I'm looking at him as a multifaceted scholar. And so let me continue here. So again, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala khataman nabiyyi wal mursaleen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa la tahsabanna allazina qutilu fi sabilillahi amwatum bal ahya'i inda rabbihim yurzakun. And do not think of those who are killed in Allah's way as dead. No, they are alive and are provided sustenance from their Lord. He is alive, his wife is alive. I feel them. I feel him more because I was very close to him, nudging me, as I told you, many times, telling me do this, do that, or correct this or correct that, when I write about him in my articles, my works about him. These are the few photographs. Unfortunately, that was the era when there was no phone, none of the gadgets which we carry these days. So the photos which we have are, the first photograph there on my right, on the top, is black and white. Professor Ismail al-Faruqi and Lois Lamia Ibsen al-Faruqi. She belonged to the Ibsen family. She is a literary family of literally people. And this is that photograph. Again, on the next side, there is the photo, him sitting with a student called Brother Saleh Apar with Brother Abdullah Siddiqui, Ahmadullah Siddiqui knows. We were at Temple University together. This photograph is very memorable. This is the night before he was killed. And this photo, he went for iftar at the Kuni Hall, where we were staying, students' residence, in the room of Brother Saleh Yapar. He's from Malaysia, a man of a scholar of literature, Malay literature, and they are having a chit chat. They had a chit chat, and he went home, and he was murdered that night. This is in Ramadan. Ramadan, I think the 15th or 14th fast. So that is very memorable picture. You can see the brightness, you can see the light, the glare on him. The other photo down in the bottom line, it says al-Faruqi. Both him and his wife are buried together in one grave. They were such a loving couple. They were one part of the other coin, like two sides of one coin. So they are buried together. And then, luckily, I gave a presentation on Faruqi few months ago, and Brother Ghulam Nabi Fai, another student friend of ours, he visited the graveyard of Professor Faruqi when he was in Philadelphia very recently, just 3-4 months ago, and he sent us that photo. And it came at the just right moment before I made my presentation on that night. So, Alhamdulillah. So this, and when he went there, he saw in that cemetery there was one lady who came to the grave, prayed Fatiha, and left. So Brother Ghulam told me that still there are people visiting the gravesite of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi. So these are very memorable photographs which we have. We don't have many more than this, and also on YouTube there is only one video of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi. It never got, it was the 8 things were never getting recorded. Now, then for 26 years, since he died in 1986 to about 2012 or 2011, when I was in Bangkok, I was always thinking that though we talk about Professor Ismail al-Faruqi, there is Triple IT, there is so many institutions talking about him. There's International Islamic University in Malaysia, which was his dream, which he created and invented. But there was no one who did a feshrift in his honor. And I felt this burden on me, that why nobody has. We have feshrift in honor of Fazlur Rahman and name anyone else, everyone, but none in the name of Faruqi. And I used to sleep and get up and I say, why no one is doing that? Fortunately, in 2010, 11, I was invited as a visiting professor at Georgetown University, and I talked to Professor John Esposito, who was his first PhD student, and Dr. Jamal Barzanji, and they told me, oh, that's a great idea. And John said to me, I have no time. I said, I have all the time. And Dr. Jamal Barzanji said, please go ahead and do it. So I got a green light, and it was published from IB Tauris, and it is titled Islam and Knowledge, al-Faruqi's Concept of Religion in Islamic Thought. Now, very interestingly, actually my visit to America this time is to launch my book on Jamal al-Barzanji in Shenandoah University next week. And when I was producing this book, I had all the access to the library of Dr. Faruqi, Professor Faruqi, which is housed in Triple IT. So I went through all the documents and I photocopied as much as I can. And from 1960 to 1986, I went through all of them. And then Dr. Jamal one day tells me, Brother Imtiyaz, I want to tell you something. He said, on the day of Qiyamah, when Professor Faruqi will ask me, Brother Jamal, what did you do for me after I died? He said to me, I will tell him, Imtiyaz did this book for you. I said, Alhamdulillah, I'm so happy. And it was like comforting, you know. He said, I'll tell him that Imtiyaz did this book for you. And when I was going through those documents, letters, receipts, everything he collected. And I have his letters with Gabe, Hamilton, Gibb, and so many Orientalists and everyone. There are letters of threat, there are letters of friendship, there are letters of so many things of them. I have all of them. I've found one manuscript there, and I went and I went through it, and I said, this was not published. Actually, there was a book which Professor Faruqi published, which was titled Islam by Argus Press, and which was used as textbook on world religions. So the editor was Professor Fred Denny from Colorado. So I wrote to him and asked him, I sent him a copy, and I said, is this the same manuscript which you and he worked together? And he said, no, this is a totally different manuscript. So then I realized that this is a manuscript which he left behind, which was never published. It's a small book. So I went through it and I revised everything, all the data in it. I kept the original text as it is, but except the data and the dates, I revised it and updated it, and it is published. It's a nice book, and I titled it Islam, Religion, Practice, Culture, and World Order. It's a nice introduction for Islamic studies, or for 101 course on Islam. So that book is published by IIIT. These are the contents. I'm not going to that. Okay. At the same time, when I was here in 2011, Dr. Jamal also asked me that we should do a special AJISS commemoration issue for life and works of Ismail al-Faruqi of American Journal of Islamic Social Sciences, which is now changed its name to American Journal of Islam and Society, 2011, number 3. This was edited by me and John Esposito together. Now, very interesting. In this journal, we have articles over there. In this journal, in the introduction, I quote John a lot. Now, we are talking about John. John visited you and he said he will be ready to come here. There's something very interesting about Professor Faruqi. John did not want to study Islamic studies, as he always says. And when John finished his PhD dissertation defense, that evening Professor Faruqi took him for dinner at the Temple University Staff Club. And John writes, told us, and writes also, he mentioned, that at that night I asked Professor Faruqi the most important question. Sir, I studied with you for 7 years, but you never asked me to become a Muslim. Because we always say, oh, you study Islam, you should become a Muslim. And here's the reply of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi. Professor Ismail al-Faruqi said to him, if you become a Muslim, alhamdulillah, well and good. Well and good. But as your teacher, it is not my duty. And I don't see it as my purpose to ask you to become a Muslim. So Professor Faruqi was distinguishing between his professional role as a teacher and as well as a Muslim example. Now, many people ask me, is John a Muslim? Because John is close to me. And John tells me, tell them that I'm of a more help to Islam by being John than by mentioning myself as a Muslim. Recently he was also interviewed and he said, if I tell you I dye my hair, will you believe me? And he answered, because people asked him the same question again, are you a Muslim? And he said, if I tell you I dye my hair, will you believe me? And he did not go further. So I think in my heart, personally, Allah knows best, whatever John is about. All right. So, but I wanted to say that about Professor Faruqi's professionalism. Another thing, as you just mentioned, he was talking about Islam in America. And Islam in America not as an inclusive thing. One day he told me, he always, he told me, Imtiyaz, I forgot something in my car. Here is my key. go and bring it, bring that thing from my car. And I took the key and I went to his car and opened the door. And you know, I'm a typical Muslim, traditional Muslim that time too. I'm kind of a little bit open-minded too. And when I opened the door, I said, wow, there were cassettes of Mozart, Beethoven, name, Tchaikovsky. And I said, wow, Professor Ismail al-Faruqi listens to all this. You know, otherwise people will say, oh, music is haram. But he was not like that. He recognized culture, music, art, and he has a very good article on Islam and art in Studia Islamica, a classic article, and he worked a lot on Islam and art. Actually, he called music as Handas as-Sawt, the engineering of sound, and it begins with the Qiraat al-Quran and Tajweed and Tartil, and then all types of music. So that was kind of shocking to me, you know. And some people like people say, oh, you have become a Muslim now, you don't listen to all this stuff. No, it's haram. But here, Faruq is a shocking experience, which I had. All right. So then 2 years ago, this was in 2000, I don't have the year here, Dr. Yaqub Mirza, who is at the Sterling Management and Center for Islam in Contemporary World, he asked me to do a volume collection and short anthology of the most important writings of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi. And I came up with this book, Ismail al-Faruqi, which is available for free download. It's one part of the work which I have done for Professor, in the honor of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi. Now, this photo appears again and again because this is the only photo we have which is in high resolution. So we use it again and again. We don't have any other photographs, so that appears again and again. So that is for introduction, just starting off. So I'm going to talk about biography and the academic career of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi and his contribution as an intellectual mujahid. Now again here, scholar activist. When I did the Feshrif, I wrote Professor Ismail al-Faruqi, an intellectual mujtahid.
You have put dash in between number 3.
Oh, okay. I'll remove that one. All right. Thank you. Yeah, okay. So when I showed the manuscript to John, he said, no, remove the mujtahid. Put mujahid in there. And that's how the title got changed of that introduction. Assalamu alaikum, sister. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to talk a little bit about his emphasis on Islamic studies to study pre-Hijrah Islam. This is an article and a short article by him published in Islamic Studies journal from Pakistan, which has never looked at it. He says, without understanding pre-Hijrah Islam and starting with Prophet Muhammad and ending up to today is not enough when we study Islamic studies. Another thing, he created this term ummatic methodology. Ummatic. This is his term, an ummatic methodology. And contemporary challenges to Islamization of knowledge project, because today there is an attempt to remove Islamization of knowledge, to replace it by integration of knowledge. I'm being very frank here, I don't mind, people may criticize me. Even his baby, Triple IT, has given up and abandoned the project of Islamization of knowledge. They say we are doing integration of knowledge. We are not doing Islamization of knowledge at all. So that has been removed. Maybe AIC will continue on that. Even the International Islamic University of Malaysia, in which he was a very important player in establishing that with Anwar Ibrahim and Prime Minister Mahathir, is also removed Islamization of knowledge, is going towards Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations as the curricula of the International Islamic University. So we have a lot of challenges. And the sixth topic there is interreligious dialogue. He was very heavily engaged in interreligious dialogue with every religion, especially with Judaism and Christianity, but also with Hinduism, Buddhism, Shinto, He wrote with P.T. Raju, he wrote with Suzuki, he wrote with, and he has this book, Historical Atlas of World Religions, with all the scholars from different religions. So, a brief introduction here again, biography. Born in 1945 in Haifa, near Tel Aviv, and he was the governor of, born in 1921 when Aligarh Muslim University was established, around that time, 1920-21. And after he was a governor of Jalili from 1945 to 48. Then he became professor of Islamics at Temple University. And before that, he was at Syracuse University. For me, he was an encyclopedia, walking an encyclopedia. His knowledge was really encyclopedic. And his mind, his mind is like, he can be researched. And the more I read his material, I think it is a mind which can be researched and learned, and you can apply. And he was not an ordinary scholar. He was very hard. He was very hard on us. He told us very clearly in the class, there's no shortcut to success. And he told us that if you don't do your hard work, don't think of ever going and presenting your paper in a conference unless you are very well grounded and established on your ground. Otherwise, these Orientalists, these scholars, they will just slash you. So I learned this from him: hard work, efficiency, and not to leave anything out. So he was very hard on us. When I wrote my first paper for him, he said, "This goes out of my window." His office is on the 6th floor. He said, "This goes out of my window. Go and." At that time, we didn't even have laptops and all this. We were using those typewriters. So if you made one mistake on a particular page, you had to rewrite the whole page again. So you didn't have all these gadgets which we have today. So he told me to rewrite it. And then when writing papers, he said another thing which he said to us students. He said, "Don't hide behind the verses of the Quran." What you students do is that you want to say something, but you put the Quranic ayat in front, and then you don't say anything. He says, you say what you want to say and put the ayat of the reference to the Quranic ayat in the footnote. You don't have to put the whole Arabic and the English translation and not say what you want to say. So that was kind of pedagogy, You have to say what you want to say, of course, on the basis of the Quran and Hadith and whatever you have, or any sources, but say what you want to say and make your arguments. Now, why this? Because he was trained as a philosopher. He was not trained as in his field is philosophy, basically. He did his PhD in philosophy, not in Islamic studies, and that was his methodology. So his very comprehensive vision of Islam, and in his relationship to different aspects of life. For him, Islam is a religion of reason, science, progress, and of course focuses on Tawheed with a modernist interpretation. I'm using the word modernist interpretation. I put him along with Fazlur Rahman. In that time, Islamic modernism was the wave. So he's kind of a very strange mix, of rationalism as well as Islamic. I won't use the word traditionalism, but authenticity. Authenticity.
You have not mentioned in the beginning, before he joined Syracuse, he was in the Institute of Islamic Studies with Fazlur Rahman.
Yeah.
At least 1 year or 2 years.
Yeah, I'll come to that. I'm coming to that. It's coming. Yeah, it's coming up. Yeah. All right. So exercise of intellectual jihad, and he has played an important role in establishing of Islamic studies programs in different parts of the world. Now, as I said, he was born in Jaffa, and this is repetition, I'm not going to go here. And then in 1948, with the creation of Israel, he migrated to Beirut, and then again he joined American University of Beirut. In 49, he entered Indiana University, got his master's there in philosophy. 51, he earned second master's in philosophy from Harvard. In 52, he got PhD in philosophy from Indiana University on his thesis titled Justifying the Good and Epistemology of Value. After getting his doctorate, he was unemployed. He didn't have a job. He was renovating homes, worked as a renovator of old houses, totally unemployed. Then, so he started this field called, he did not like the word Islamic studies. He's a trailblazer of Islamic studies in the United States with Fazlur Rahman and Syed Hussein Nasser. He coined the word Islamics instead of Islamic studies. He saw that as an Oriental invention. Now, in 1970 onwards, before that, in 1960, when he was at McGill, he was visiting there, and he met Fazlur Rahman. Fazlur Rahman was teaching there, as Brother Abdullah mentioned, and both of them discussed together about what is the need of the Ummah. What does the Ummah need? And both of them were of similar minds, similar thinking, but of course they had their own identities. And Fazlur Rahman convinced Faruqi to go with him to Karachi, because that time President Ayub Khan wanted to start the Islamization project, Islamic modernization project. So he set up the Islamic Research Institute. So he was invited, Professor Iqtidar Hussain Siddiqui, the IH, he's the historian. He was the vice chancellor, and he invited Faruqi to go. Ishtiyaq Qureshi, yeah. He asked him to come to Karachi. So 62, 63, he went there, and he was with Fazlur Rahman. There's a lot of correspondence on that material, in that era, and he wrote curriculums, syllabuses for Islamic studies. I have all of them there with me, and both of them went to Pakistan. But his experience in Pakistan was where he got upset. He got upset. Why? He said, Pakistan is created, but these people are only drinking chai. There is only talking about drinking chai and chai and chai. And nobody is serious about what Pakistan should be. Brother Tanveer is smiling. What Pakistan should become. What an opportunity it is for Pakistan. So he left Pakistan. I have even letters by Fazlur Rahman writing to him by hand. I have another article which I published on him, Fazlur Rahman and Faruqi. But they had differences, and the difference of opinion was on Arabism, on Uruba. I will come on to that later on. Okay. Now, there is also Sayyid Hussain. So, three people, Fazlur Rahman, Faruqi, and Nasser. Fazlur Rahman and Faruqi are rationalists. In fact, an obituary written off on Faruqi from Muslim Education Quarterly from London describes Faruqi as a Mu'tazili. Faruqi was a mix-up. It's very strange, very, very difficult to really pin him down. That he is at one time a Muwahid, emphasis on Tawheed. On the other hand, he writes about Ikhwan as-Safa. Then he appreciates Qadi Abdul Jabbar. Then he appreciates Mu'tazila. Then he appreciates Western philosophy. He knows Kant very well and all Western. So it's very difficult to pin him down. That's why I said he's very, very encyclopedic. And so for him, the study of Islam is where I see him, though he's known as the initiator of Islamization of knowledge, but he is the only Muslim scholar who is in the area of phenomenology of religion and history of religion. That is where his contribution is, and that's where I place him, because he was a phenomenologist. He was very much impressed by Max Scheler and all the Vienna school and all that. So that's where I pin him down. And he said Islamization of knowledge is just a small thing. This is not my main contribution. My main contribution is my book on Christian ethics. That is my magnum opus. not Islamization of knowledge. I will come to that later on afterwards. Okay. So from 54 to 58, I'm going back, he went to Azhar to improve his traditional understanding of Islam. 60 and 61, he was, as I talked about, he was in McGill. And there he studied Christianity and Judaism. And he became very close friend with Wilfred Cantwell Smith at McGill. He was the director there. And at McGill, as I said, he met Fazlur Rahman, and they went to Pakistan. They shared a mission to raise the level of Islamic studies in the Muslim world. And the first course I studied with him at Temple University was Quran, and the textbook was Major Themes of the Quran, in spite of his differences with Fazlur Rahman. He didn't say that, oh, this is a book by Fazlur Rahman, I don't agree with him, so we don't read it. No, that was our textbook. And the whole course was based on that textbook. So that was his magnanimity. As I said, Professor Qureshi invited him, then they were in Pakistan, and he was dissatisfied because he saw Pakistan, creation of Pakistan not being fulfilled. And in 64, he left and he came to Syracuse. And at that time, in 68, a new department was established, Department of Religion at Temple University in Philadelphia. And it was established, and Professor, the founder of that, Professor Smith, I think, forget his name, he wanted that in that department, the follower of a particular religion, a scholar of a particular religion, would teach that religion. So we would study Judaism from a Jewish scholar, Christianity from Christian scholar, Buddhism from Buddhist scholar. That's how I got my interest in Buddhism, and Islam was being taught by a Muslim scholar. So this was kind of good training, that we studied religion, a particular religion, from the follower of that religion and a scholar of that religion. Now, Professor Faruqi wrote an article, Islam and Christianity Dialogue or Diatribe. You may have seen that. And when the editor of the Journal of Ecumenical Studies, Professor Leonard Swidler, read that article, he said, this is kind of a person I want. And he got immediately, they invited him, and he got appointed, but they didn't like him afterwards, because he knew Christianity very well. So much so that when he would speak something about Christianity, and I remember once a professor at a seminar sitting next to me as professor of Christianity telling me, he teaches our religion to us. That was kind of a compliment, but not a good compliment. He said, he teaches our religion to us. So he had mastered the study of religions. 64, he becomes the associate professor, I said already, so I'm just going to jump over. So he remains at Temple University until 1986. Now, his contributions. He is combining the academic study of Islam with the study of Christianity, history and phenomenology of religion, and interreligious dialogue. That time, interreligious dialogue was just beginning. It was at the infant stage. Today, everyone is a scholar in interreligious dialogue. Everyone, after 9/11, everyone's, even my friends and my relatives are experts in interreligious dialogue. So when you talk about interreligious dialogue today, they say, oh, do you know Zakir Naik? I say, yeah, I know Zakir Naik. Okay. Or do you know Didat? I say, yeah, we know Didat. But then they tell me, so what do you think about Didat? I say, yeah, there's primary school and there's high school and there's university. So you have to progress, Yes, we need Didat, we need Zakir Naik. But sometimes I said, because of Zakir Naik, we need to close our shop. Because we don't do the way, interreligious dialogue the way he does. But he's very famous anyway. So, and then but he's best known in the Muslim world for his Islamization of knowledge plan. Now, when I'm talking about Islamization of knowledge, we should go to the 1982 version of the book. I'll come to that in a minute. Not the later editions, which were, we have the habit of massacring the works of the original writings. So the 1982 text of Islamization of knowledge is the original text, which he wrote, the work plan. And then after he died, the other editions came up and they changed a lot. Why I heard that the 1982 version of Islamization of knowledge requires a lot of hard work on the students, for the students to do. So some universities which implemented this program in Pakistan and in Malaysia, they said, no, this is too much, or we can't put our students to do that. I think it's not that the excuse was naming the students, but I think it was the teachers were not prepared to implement that program as he had envisioned. And then, of course, Naqib al-Attas says that Faruqi stole my idea of Islamization of knowledge. So my answer is that if he stole, then you write a similar kind of a book, and just answer him, reply him back instead of complaining. Yes, sister.
I'm wondering if you could expand a little bit on the Islamization of knowledge. What was his idea about that?
Okay. I think I'll be coming to that. Yeah, I'll be coming to that. Please be patient. Okay. Now, I list these 13 areas of his expertise or his specialization. First is Uruba, monotheistic Arabism. This is not nationalism. This is Arab religious consciousness. Uruba is Arab religious consciousness. Many people get upset when we use the word Uruba. They think it refers to Arab nationalism. And they all say, everyone says that Faruqi was a nationalist and then he became an Islamist. I say no. I say he was, as a philosopher, as a student of phenomenology of religion, he was looking at as Uruba as a Tawhidi religious consciousness. And he says that it is only the Arabs, in the history of religions, the greatest gift of the Arabs is monotheism to the world, to the field of world religions. Not in India or in Europe or in Greece or anywhere else. It appeared in Arabia, and his vision of Arabia is not limited to only. It begins from Hammurabi, from Mesopotamia, until South Arabia, and not only limited to Sumeria and what the Orientalists were talking about. The other is pre-Hijra Islam, a very neglected area of research in Islamic studies. We have to study pre-Hijra Islam. We say Adam alayhi salam is the first Muslim, right? But we don't do research about what is pre-Hijra Islam. We say there were 124,000 prophets in the Islamic tradition, but we don't study all that before the revelation of the Quran. So pre-Hijra Islam is very important. Then religion and geography. I was talking with the son of Dr. Ahmadullah Siddiqui last night before you came, and importance of geography and religion. How geography shapes religious consciousness or religious ideas. History of religious ideas, if I use Mircea Eliade's words, religion and geography. So the first book he writes in Syracuse is with his colleague David Schoffer. It's called Religion and Geography. Second work he does, which he edits, is the Historical Atlas. See the language, Historical Atlas of World Religions, in which he asks, in which there are contributions by experts of every religion, even Greek Orthodox religion, Russian Orthodox religion, Judaism and all, on Buddhism and all. So geography and religion is important. Historical, and his last book, which was published after his death, is the Cultural Atlas of Islam. So you see the word atlas come again and again and again. So geography and religion is very important. And that is tied with his Uruba as a religious consciousness, which comes when you go to Hajj, you can realize that. When you are in the desert in the night, you can understand what is Tawheed, what Tawheed means. And what is religious consciousness, like when you do the tawaf, why we go anti-clockwise when we do the tawaf, we are voluntarily joining the cosmic system, the sunnatullah of the nature, where you are really affirming your shahada by joining the planetary, the natural system, and saying, yes, I am a Muslim, just like everything else is a Muslim. and Quranic exegesis here. Then Mu'tazili thought, Christian ethics, that he says is his magnum opus. Muslim Christian dialogue, science and traditional values, Islam and art. He did a lot of work on, he and his wife, because his wife was an expert on art, music, and all field of aesthetics. Essence of religious experience in Islam, Islam and culture, Islam and human rights, and the 13th topic is meta-religion. This meta-religion is religion beyond religion, or something which is not, it is not the traditional Islam which we practice, but it's universality of Islam. Universality of Islam as inclusive of all the religions which came before Islam. So it means there's a lot of research which can be done on these topics, but unfortunately not much has been done. So in the field of, he offered a Muslim perspective of religion based on the study and knowledge of historical critical research of ancient Near East, historical texts and Muslim sources. Faruqi saw the struggle between monotheism and polytheism as the central theme of religions of the Arabian theater. Okay, and for him, he calls monotheism as monotheic ethical vision, which is rooted in the Quranic view of deen based on the principle of monotheism, universalism, tolerance, and life affirmation, which is in contrast to mythopoeic religious worldview. Monotheic is opposite of mythopoeic, because mythopoeic mind cannot go to abstracted understanding of Tawheed. It stops at tamasil, at the stage of idol worship. It's not able to go beyond, transcend to the monotheic vision. So monotheic and mythopoeic, the monotheist and the polytheist religious worldviews are found in Arabia and cannot be applied to other religious worldviews such as Hinduism or non-theistic Buddhism or spirit religions of Africa, China, and Japan. So you can see, as he comes as a historian of religion, locating monotheic vision of Tawheed in Arabia. And he's not an Arab nationalist again. I'll come to that again. All right. So for Faruqi, Islam is the first and the last religion revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without collaborating it with facts is not enough. So he called for the study of pre-Hijrah Islam. You have to base that on pre-Hijrah Islam. Study of religious texts of ancient Near East, from Mesopotamia, from the Akkadians and the Sumerians, and he made us read Gilgamesh, Enuma Elish, and all those ancient Near Eastern, the Egyptian texts, the Persian texts, the Hebrew texts. He made us read these books, and we used to joke after the class, say, what is Professor Faruqi doing with us? We come to here to study Islamization of knowledge and to study Quran with him, and he's telling us, go and read Mesopotamian texts and Enuma Elish and Gilgamesh and all this, What is he doing with us? But there was a reason, to bring us back, to understand the historicity of Islamic tradition. So we read this ancient Near Eastern text. He did a course on that with us, which are available. So we used to joke after the class that, oh, Professor Faruqi, are we wasting our time with him or not? But as I said to you, he was very encyclopedic. So pre-Hijrah Islam, again I come to this, for him study and research of religion was not detached inquiry. It's a critical engagement directed towards critical study of the place of religion in human history. And then when pre-Hijrah Islam is based on the concept of Deen al-Fitra, or religio naturalis. He held that the concept of Deen al-Fitra is rooted in the Quranic teaching of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has sent prophet in every community, in every language, and brought by the authentic prophets who received revelations which were altered later on. He says even the Buddha's teachings have been altered. But we need to do that research on Buddha. He has that debate also. Because Kenneth Craig, there was an interreligious dialogue meeting in Switzerland, and Kenneth Craig was pulling his leg and saying, "So you mean to say the Buddha is a prophet?" And Faruqi said, he may have been a prophet, and his text may have been altered. We have to do research on it. And so I'm not writing out, rather he's saying that I'm inclusive of all the religious traditions. And he called upon the Muslims not to be just satisfied with the understanding of Islam, which begins and ends with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, but to engage in studying and conducting research of pre-Hijrah Islam as a step towards building inter-religious dialogue. Okay, so then he talks about a religion, the original religion, which is Din al-Fitra. I'm not going to go here. So, in Faruqi's worldview of Islam is made up of three components. First is ideational, in the sense that it highlights the centrality of Tawheed, monotheism, as the core idea of Arab religious consciousness in contrast to other civilizations, whether it is the Indian or the Chinese or the Mesopotamian or the Persian or whatever you have. Second is axiological. It is a valuational adherence to Islam that is faithfulness to the values of monotheistic piety, ethics, and world affirmation. It is not national, racial, or ideological. He was very much against racialization of Islam. That only this group says, we are the correct Muslims, or that group says, we are the correct Muslims. No racialism in Islam, no nationalism in Islam. And the third is the aesthetical dimension of the revelation is evident from the aesthetic character of the Arabic language and aesthetical expression in Muslim literature, calligraphy, architecture, music, and painting. For Faruqi, the theological, moral, and aesthetical dimensions of Muslim life and thought are infused with monotheistic consciousness, based on the duality, very important, duality of the creator and his creation. This is important part of Islamic worldview. Okay, so development of knowledge has to be ummatic in orientation, a collective undertaking that included the religious ulama, the academic scholars, students, and other professional bankers, lawyers, what you just were mentioning in the corridor, that everyone is welcome here in AIC. He used to come here every weekend, from Philadelphia, flew into Chicago to come and do the management part of American Islamic College development with Dr. Ahmed Sakar and others who were around here. So he used to come. Okay. And it was not a one-man show. It was a combined effort. He invited everyone from all disciplines. He never discriminated, saying that, no, these people are like that or that group is like that. He invited everyone. And there's a need for Islamization of knowledge as a collective need facing the Ummah. Because he is in the era of post-colonial era, and there's a crisis in Muslim education, and that of course leads to the Makkah conference in 1977. So for Faruqi, treated his students, Muslims or non-Muslims, John Esposito, Christians, Sikhs, without discrimination, making them realize what are the pedagogical and intellectual problems facing the Muslim Ummah at large. Now, see, Esposito has benefited so much by studying with Faruqi that today he is the main voice in the field of Islamic studies in this country. He always says it is by the studies of Islam that he was able to buy his first Lexus. So you can understand what he is. He becomes very materialistic in that sense of the term. But many of his students benefited from by studying with Faruqi. This is a repetition. So, okay. And he was critical of Sufism. Maybe this, I have to say this, because he was critical, because not Sufism in its good understanding, good meaning, but Sheikh and Murshid kind of relationship, master-disciple relationship. He was very critical of that. Fazlur Rahman was also very critical of that. Because it leads to the stagnation and it has led to the stagnation and corruption of Muslim societies. So he was captivated, as I said. Now here comes very interesting. He was captivated with Mu'tazili theologians like Al-Nazam, Qadi Abdul Jabbar, Ikhwan al-Safa, and then he even translates works by Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Now you say, now what is he doing? He's going all over, he's including everyone, and then he also writes his Kitab al-Tawheed. He's got one book. His Kitab al-Tawheed is that book, Tawheed, and its expressions in English. For Faruqi, he was a Muslim of modern age, a Tawheedi rationalist. I'm trying to analyze him. Intellectual revivalist, plus a phenomenologist and a historian of religion and social sciences. He was a polymath person in this perspective. He was really very, very universalistic in his understanding. Now, Faruqi wrote in English and Arabic language. He viewed Islam as an Arab to the study of Arabic language, religion, literature, culture, without being an Arab nationalist. Everyone says he was an Arab nationalist, but I disagree with them. His Islam-based understanding of Uruba, as I mentioned before, should not be confused with modern Arabic nationalism of Nasser and Hafiz al-Assad and Ba'ath Party, Michel Aflaq and all that. He preferred the term Arab over the term Semitic or Semites. He says this is an invention of the European biblical scholars. So we should use the word Arab, because Arab doesn't mean a race. It is a language. It is a family of languages. Hebrew, Aramaic, Amharic, all those languages. It is not a racial term. And Arab religious cultural theater extends from Mesopotamia into North Syria, Palestine, Central and Peninsular Arabia. And this is where Fazlur Rahman and many of the non-Arab Muslims don't like Faruqi. I have no problem with that. I said it's very important to understand Arab religious consciousness, because I am studying it as a student of history of religion and phenomenology of religion. But Fazlur Rahman did not like that. Everyone says that he inserted his Arabism. So that is a clash which comes up again and again. For Faruqi, Tawhidi monotheistic Arabism is the essence of three traditions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They make up the Arab stream of being. This is from his book, Uruba and Religion. He saw Arabism as the source of Muslim civilization based on two categories: Al-Arab al-Ariba and Al-Arab al-Mustariba. That is, those who became Muslims and adopted Arabic language and Islamic religious consciousness and Islamic monotheism. So Tawheed is the greatest gift, I'm repeating here, of the Arab religious consciousness to humanity. Okay, I'll skip this. Now let's come to the field of, as a scholar. He was also very much interested in studying as a displaced Palestinian in the issue of God, of Adl, of justice was very important. So he was even called as a guerrilla scholar by some of the Jewish and the Israeli scholars. They say, oh, he is a guerrilla scholar, because he was a Palestinian. He had lost his land, he lost his home, and that was part of his being. And in the area of history and phenomenology of religion, he liked to study classical Muslim thinkers like Al-Biruni, Ibn Hazm, on whom Dr. Asi wrote his PhD thesis, Ash-Sharastani and Ibn Taymiyyah. Faruqi was the foremost modern Muslim phenomenologist of religion. I put him as a phenomenologist. And in he wrote this book, Islamic Tawheed, which is available for the modern. Now, coming to Islamization of knowledge, it advocated adoption of Islamic worldview by Muslims residing in their homelands. Because after the colonial era, there was an intellectual crisis. So Islamization of knowledge is an intellectual and a practical engagement with Western modernity from the point of view of experiential advantage, educational reform in Muslim world. It does not mean to reinvent the wheel. Ziauddin Sardar is the father of integration of knowledge, and Faruqi is the father of Islamization of knowledge. And they had a lot of clash together. And in the book, Desperate Ziauddin Sardar's book, Desperately Seeking for Paradise, I think that's the title, in which Sardar says, Faruqi comes down one day at a conference, they are together at the breakfast table, and he comes down and tells because Sardar and his group, the Afkar group, the Ijmalis, they were talking about approaching knowledge from the scratch. So Faruqi comes down Faruqi is big, he comes down and he tells to Ziauddin Sardar, I am not interested in reinventing the wheel. Islamization of knowledge does not mean reinventing the wheel. The wheel has already been invented. How we as a Muslim can make it better. You see, like when I was flying here, I was flying on Boeing 787. I said, wow, there's a new version of Boeing. So how are you going to Islamize the wheel of Boeing 787 that it is ecologically sustainable, it is humanistically helpful, so that it benefits humanity. So his vision was that Muslims never gave up what was there of the past. They took from the past. So even you call it, when you set your computer, it says Arab numerals, but actually it's Indian numbers. But Arabs developed on it. So his view is that we develop things on from what has been invented, but keeping in mind the role of Khalifa fil ard. Otherwise, all the crises which we are facing today, the pandemic, the COVID, and we can't even sit face to face sometimes. I am afraid of the other. I carry mask with me, because of what? Because we have what? We have not fulfilled the role of Khalifa fil ard. We have arrogated, we have exploited, we have corrupted our role as human beings on the earth. So the Islamization of knowledge is not ideologization of knowledge. It is not ideology. It is not ideology. Brother Abdullah is here. For me, IIUM is an ideological factory. Unfortunately, the students don't go read beyond what I teach in the class. They don't want to read more. And everyone wants Islamic State. But Faruqi very rarely uses the word Islamic State. Whenever he uses, he qualifies what he means by Islamic State. So it is not an ideological factory. We are interested in knowledge, not to reinvent the wheel. Now, how can we make things better? Our contribution to science, technology, and whatever we have. That is what he means by Islamization of knowledge. This is my understanding. Abdullah Hassan has more. No, because he has larger experience than me. For me, 4 years were more than enough. Okay. So, it does not mean, it is different from integration of knowledge of Ziauddin Sardar and Ijmalis. Ziauddin Sardar does not like me for that, and he knows that very clearly. We know when we meet each other. So, Islamization of Knowledge project begins with the Makkah conference in 1977. It goes on, and then they establish this Islamic universities. The OIC takes over. American Islamic College is set up, and International Islamic University in Pakistan, in Malaysia, and all. The whole project goes on. And he visited everyone. He went to Pakistan. He was very close with the President Ziaul Haq as an advisor. He went to Iran. He went to Malaysia, very close with Anwar Ibrahim. And he played his role, but he was not a politician. And then the IIIT was founded in 1981. When I came in 1984 as a student, so I asked Professor Faruqi, where is International Institute of Islamic Thought? He says, I am the International Institute of Islamic Thought. I am IIIT. Because at that time they didn't have the office yet in Herndon in Virginia. He said, I am the IIIT. So, IIIT was formed with the objective of revival and reform of Islamic thought through Islamization of knowledge. which after Faruqi's death changed. Today, IIIT is not talking about Islamization of knowledge. It is talking about Maqasid al-Sharia and integration of knowledge. So they have abandoned, they themselves say that we have abandoned this project. We are no more in this field. Okay. But for he was concerned about the state of the malaise of the Ummah. Secularized, westernized, de-Islamized state of the crisis of the Muslim Ummah. And he wanted, what is Islamization of knowledge? If I put it in one sentence, is mastering the disciplines. Master the disciplines, all those disciplines whichever you are in. Master them so well that you will make your own original contribution, be it biology, be it medicine, be it nuclear technology or whatever you have. Nuclear science, go in that, all these fields and master the disciplines. And make your own contributions in theory and method. What happens is that the Western scholars treat us as the data and they produce the theories. Now we, the data, should produce the theories. You know, when I am in Thailand or in Malaysia, I have these American summer scholars coming. You know, they say before coming in May, or whenever your summer break takes place, they write to me, I'm coming to Malaysia or I'm coming to Thailand in May, June, July, something like that. Are you available? I would like to meet you for a lunch. I said, I'm not that cheap for a lunch with you. I know what you want. You want to come and meet me and take some data from me, some information from me, and ask me to give you one of my students as a translator for you, because you will go and do your anthropological research and then you'll go back and write a book and become famous. Yeah, that's what happens. All right? Most of the Western scholars come to Asia, Africa, and they do that. So they asked me for a lunch and I said, no, I'm not available or I'm not free, because that's what they do. So we should master the disciplines. We should not be the data, because the data should produce theories. We are treated as the data. And you can see most of the Western, and this is also happening in the United States today, I see most of the books and the writings on Islam are in the field of anthropology or ethnography. This is a colonial project to study the primitives, right? We are still the primitives. They still come and do, and many of our students, especially in Indonesia, there's flourishing anthropology after Clifford Gates and all those other guys, you know. And people are writing about Zanzibar, Pariyal, about Kandahar or whatever you have. They're coming in and anthropology is flourishing. And we are continuing their job. We are continuing the legacy of the anthropologists, because they started with the question of the origin of man and origin of religion, right? So they went to learn from the primitives, and now we are continuing with that. Professor Arkun, he used to come to Temple University, and he says this is all ethnography, full of ethnography. We have to get out of this, and that's where we get caught. That's what happens if you look at the state of education in the Muslim countries. Okay, let me go. So I talk about these two versions of Islamization of knowledge. The golden color or the brown color is the 1982, and the other one, the 1982 version, says Ismail al-Faruqi. I have a photocopy of that. I only have a photocopy. I don't have the original. The original is not available. Then comes the 1989 version. He dies in 86. This is the second edited, revised and expanded version with no author named here. It says Islamization of knowledge, revised, general principles and work plan. This was done by IIIT people later on. Sitting, they revised the whole work. So that is the version which is. So, Islamization of knowledge, critique by Fazlur Rahman. Fazlur Rahman is critical of Islamization of knowledge. He's a great scholar, no doubt about that. He is emphasizing that we should go about creating Islamic knowledge. Let us invest in more of our time and energy and money in the creation, not of propositions, but minds. He gave a talk at IIIT in 1988, I think, after the death of Faruqi. My plea, therefore, is that we create thinkers of those who have the capacity to think constructively and positively. We cannot lay down rules for them to think. The Quran is an action-oriented book par excellence. We have to cultivate this productive first judge our own tradition as to what is right and what went wrong. Then we must judge the Western tradition. Now, Professor Faruqi, in spite of their differences, friendship and differences with Fazlur Rahman, since I'm in Chicago, I should say this. Once in the classroom, he said once, University of Chicago did not treat Fazlur Rahman in the right way. They did not recognize his scholarship. So we asked him, why you say that? He says, he should be Faruqi. Faruqi says, University of Chicago did not give acknowledgement to the scholarship of Fazlur Rahman. They put him in the department of Middle Eastern or Near Eastern studies. He should be in the school of divinity because he was a scholar of Islamic thought. But Christians did not want a Muslim in the school of divinity here in the University of Chicago. So you see, in spite of their differences, he recognizes the scholarship of Fazlur Rahman. So these are something very, very, very important things. Now, how much time do I have? I can go on forever. So.
Well, it might be. Already we've been blessed with some interactive.
Sure.
Questioning. So it might be nice to move the discussion into a more interactive space.
Yeah.
I know that many people have questions.
I think that's it's good time to stop here.
No, don't stop. We're not stopping. We're just shifting now into a more interactive state.
Yeah.
Is there a concluding page in your thing?
Yeah, surely there is.
So why don't you do that and then we...
Okay, all right. Okay, because I talk about interreligious dialogue. I just want to say one thing here. Interreligious dialogue starts after Second Vatican II, right? And the Nostra Aetate document from Vatican II. And Faruqi attended many conferences on interreligious dialogue, and he told the Christians, Catholics and Protestants that Nostra Aetate is not enough. Nostra Aetate only acknowledges the presence of other religions, but it does not promise me salvation. In the salvation plan of the Christian Church, of the Catholic Church, I am not included. You recognize Prophet Muhammad. So Nostra Aetate, unless and until Nostra Aetate does not acknowledge the role of other human beings, Muslim believers, Muslims in a bigger term of Muhammad Asad, when he translates the word Muslim, in the salvific plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Nostra Aetate is not enough. So interreligious dialogue has, from the Western side, from the Christian side, has to be expanded. So that was his criticism of, and it is documented. It's documented in that. So that is not enough, he says. Okay, and then So this is Christian Ethics. The book I mentioned as his masterpiece. I'll skip this all over. Okay, conclusion.
There was one slide before that, the OIC or IOK.
IOK.
I'm actually very interested in this. What is the difference between the Islamization and integration of knowledge?
Okay. Need to go back. Okay, Islamization of knowledge I already explained. Yeah. Ziauddin Sarzar says there is need to deconstruct the definitional power of modern knowledge system and its Western worldview. Produce alternative paradigms of knowledge formation that take into account the histories, legacies, traditions of Islam and offer a more humane and value-based appreciation of what constitutes learning and its advancement. This is from I'm quoting from him directly, and he says, Islamization of knowledge is a discourse. For Ziauddin Sardar's criticism of Islamization of knowledge is that it is only westernizing Muslims. He says it is westernization of Muslims. And Ziauddin Sardar says Islamization of knowledge in his way, he says, I would argue that dominant Western paradigm of knowledge are not only becoming increasingly archaic, but are also undermining progress towards sustainable futures. So there's a need to transcend contradictions that are deeply embedded in contemporary world, such as knowledge and values, secularism and religion. So he's basically trying to say we should start from the scratch again, if put it very simply. And the last point here, he says that he's interested in polylogue, not dialogue. Polylogue, but in the end it becomes monologue of Ziauddin Sardar. It does. When you listen to Ziauddin Sardar, it is only he wanting to talk about himself. He doesn't want to engage everyone else in that dialogue. Now let me conclude here. So today, 37 years after Faruqi's death, he still has left a lasting influence that people still, like here we are talking about him, right? Even though few of us. He and his wife were murdered by a person whom we know, who was a convert to Islam, who had a psychological problem. But Ahmadullah knew him, I knew him, and he had some psychological problem. By we called him Yusuf Ali. For Faruqi, Islam was not opposed to modern science and technology, be it based in the past or modern paradigms. What mattered was whether it was axiologically sound in terms of values in the area of ethics, aesthetics, and religion. Faruqi presented Islam as a religious worldview and as an integral part of knowledge process without engaging in apologetics, as I said, mentioned to you, hiding behind the verses of the Quran. His work on Christian ethics, again, I don't want to mention that. So, in the contemporary era, now we are moved into postmodern era of artificial intelligence, pandemic, climate change. Islamization of knowledge is still relevant, but we have abandoned it. Why is it relevant? Because it is talking about what is the future of Khalifa fil Ard on this planet. We should not lose that paradigm, that understanding. And Islamization of knowledge, for me, should be an ongoing venture which cannot be unmindful of the new challenges, epistemological or ontological understanding of the Islamic worldviews. So I conclude here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we can have interaction now.
See, I want to follow up on what Dr. Farial was asking about, and I'm thinking of Sayyid Naqib al-Attas and his writings about the need to kind of take the fragmented array of Western sciences and, in a way, bring them all back within a unifying cosmological framework. Is that different from what Professor al-Faruqi was thinking of when he was thinking about Islamizing knowledge? Or
yes, there's a difference.
How can you explain that for us?
I can explain that very simply, if I attempt here now. Because see, for Naqib al-Attas, Sufism is important. Okay, Malay world is important, and for him, he comes from that perspective. Yes, he has a view of knowledge, but his view of knowledge includes what you just mentioned, but he doesn't talk about mastering the disciplines.
I see.
And engaging with the contemporary challenges. He and his students are always going back, not going forward.
So are you saying that for Professor al-Faruqi, rahimahullah, that Islamizing knowledge, part of that has to do with the intention, meaning that you're mastering the disciplines in order to solve problems
of humanity
today.
Right. Yes.
So part of Islamizing knowledge is restoring a sense of intention, right? That to bring back knowledge that benefits.
Right. Just like what al-Farabi did, what Ibn Sina did, what all the earlier Muslim scientists did.
So it has to do with niyyah.
It has to do with?
Nia.
Yes, 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 yes. So, Nia and your role as Khalifa fil ard, so that we can sustain this world as Khalifa fil ard. Well, because today we are not doing that. Well, Naqib al-Atas talks about the role of human today and the challenges. Is for me, maybe my bias, all right? It has to be there. It is still restricted to Sufism and adab. And for him, adab is very important. But adab is not mentioned in the field of Islamic knowledge as a project. Ilm is important. Okay, yeah. Faruqi emphasizes on ilm. Now here, Faruqi tells us that you have to read Franz Rosenthal's Knowledge Triumphant as a classic work on Islam, on an approach to knowledge. So for him, ilm is inclusive of all, the ulama and the social scientists and everyone in every field, again mastering the discipline. Everyone is an alim. Even an engineer is an alim. An alim is not only a scholar of hadith and fiqh and all the religious sciences. So it is an all-inclusive project. And the difference between Faruqi and Naqib al-Atas will be on Sufism a lot. Because Faruqi does not like Sufism. Yeah. And that is there. Yes.
See, on a philosophical level, the epistemology and ontology of Islam is based on revelation. And the epistemology and ontology of the Western tradition is based on akal,
Yes.
or reason. These are two totally different epistemologies and ontologies. And to think that you can Islamize the Western paradigm, I see it not possible, because the source of knowledge for two is totally different. And after Kant, we are not ready to accept revelation.
Yeah.
And another point is this, that the Sufism, that the religion now, at this stage of humanity, it has become experiential. Like Iqbal says, it is a process of discovery that individual does. So it's a process of knowing the divine. And that has become very personal, whereas the human aspect of the religion is more what the human beings can do together.
Okay.
So, I mean, these will be my two criticisms on what, you are suggesting about.
I agree with you, but mystical philosophy or Ishraqi school or illuminationist school, which happens with the Mullah Sadra and all, which is the main trend of understanding of Sufism today, does not lead to Islamization of knowledge, quote unquote, if I use the term, of rediscovery of knowledge or knowledge.
But that is the second part, which has nothing to do with the first part, because the aspect of personal revelation and personal experience, instead of a theoretical dogma.
But you don't have to. Faruqi is not asking you to abandon the Quran. He doesn't. He is interested in aql, but as a ilm, but not in the Western sense of the term only. Yeah.